We've come a long way together over the last year. Now we need everybody, we need you to get vaccinated and help put COVID behind us once and for all. It's time for everyone to say they've rolled up their sleeves and gotten their vaccinations. COVID vaccines are safe and effective. Everyone in the Benjamin family has now been vaccinated, even our youngest. Just like we've done, and just like so many others across the Midlands, it is important to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your community. Once you've gotten fully vaccinated, you'll know you've done your part in helping everyone get safely back together again. Take a look, see how easy that was. Vaccinations are free and available from great community partners all across the Midlands. Getting our city and all of our communities back to normal is almost within reach. We're almost there. This is your shot, Columbia.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
Another Wellness Wednesday on Coping with COVID. I'm Tre Tailor, In It Together SC, and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. And today we're focusing on the men in our lives, our husbands, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles, papas, baby daddies, all of those great guys, to find out how they feel about their health, what they're concerned about, how and if they take care of it, and what we as women can do to help the men in our lives. We are having an intergenerational conversation, including Dr. Gerald Wilson, sportscaster Rick Henry, and also the baby in the bunch, Merrill Johnson. All of these gentlemen join us today on Coping with COVID. Thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
Great. We're going to talk to them coming up next and more on Coping with COVID. But first, your COVID community updates. In an emotional speech, Lexington School District 5 Superintendent Dr. Christina Melton resigned during a board meeting yesterday. The surprise announcement came just a week after she was named Superintendent of the Year. Shortly after, board member Ed White also resigned, saying he disagreed with a secret settlement signed by other board members to make it seem as though Melton resigned voluntarily. A new superintendent is set to be named on July 1st. 5 South Carolina prisons will resume visitation for the first time in 15 months. Vaccinated individuals can visit their vaccinated loved ones at Palmer, Livesay, Goodman, and Manning. Currently, 58% of inmates in South Carolina have accepted the COVID vaccine. In-person visits at more facilities will be phased in eventually, and video visits will continue. Finally, there are several hiring events going on in South Carolina this month, including Food Line. They're hosting an open interview session today from 4 until 7. There'll be a job fair for teens and adults at Eastover Park this Friday. Plus, DJJ has a hiring event this and next Thursday. Now, Mark Anthony Brewery will take applications the next 3 Fridays, plus job fairs at the SC Military Virtual Career Fair. Also, Tyson Foods is looking for 330 people. Babcock Center needs 50 full and part-time positions. And over in Sumter, over 10 companies will take applications. We'll add Healthy Transitions. That's on June 26th. Also in Myrtle Beach, Vacation MB will hire for jobs at 13 oceanfront resorts and their call center. Information is on the screen and will be scrolling throughout the show. SCDHEC has your most up-to-date list of times, dates, and locations for COVID tests and vaccines in and around South Carolina. Again, check the scroll at the bottom of the screen throughout the show for more specific locations, but we're going to highlight a couple right now. COVID vaccines are being held at Lexington Medical Center. Now, if you are a vet, the VA is handling all COVID vaccinations for vets. Several retailers, including Kroger pharmacies, CVS, and Target stores with CVS inside, are also offering COVID vaccinations. Now, Benedict College's vaccination clinic continues Monday through Saturday from 10 until 4:30. And if you or someone you know is having some challenges making their appointment, Get Set Up is giving free help to seniors. Now, the Comet bus system says don't miss your shot. Not only are they offering free rides to get your COVID vaccine, they are also offering free COVID vaccinations at the main location in Columbia at the corner of Sumter and Laurel Streets. Now, some financial resources are also available, including COVID funeral expenses. FEMA is reimbursing you for yours. Again, that information is on the screen. And bill assistance programs from richlandcountysc.gov and Dominion Energy and SC Housing. As a matter of fact, ladies from SC Housing and Dominion Energy will be on Coping with COVID tomorrow to tell you about that information. Also, SC Housing, as you can see on the screen, offers frontline workers home buying assistance. Now, the City of Columbia continues their 6-month payment plan for water bills, and you can also get payment assistance up to 75%. And the ACA open enrollment for the Affordable Care Act going on through August 15th, with more benefits and more subsidies, including for those folks who are already registered or go ahead and register through August 15th. South Carolina Department of Mental Health has launched SC Hopes. We're going to talk with the executive director of SC Hopes coming up in the next segment to talk about how men deal with their mental and emotional health. That hotline is open for folks to help them cope with COVID. Finally, a statewide summer feeding program is going on, and it is eligible for all school-aged children, regardless of where they attend school. Again, more information is on the screen right now, and we'll be scrolling throughout the show. Don't forget about Wellness Wednesday. Coping with COVID present Wellness Wednesday. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Listen, if you're interested in a diabetes prevention program, check out the In It Together website and the In It Together Facebook page for more information. We're actually streaming live on the In It Together Facebook page. Please go over there and hit like and share. They've got a wealth of information. We're also streaming live on the Tailor-Made production page. That's the home of Coping with COVID. Please go over there, hit like and share and follow. Not only can you find out what's going on when we air live on Coping with COVID, but you can also get all of your COVID-related updates. We also are streaming live on YouTube. Want to say hi to all of you YouTubers. Thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button. We also have a presence on Instagram and on Twitter. Coping with COVID presents Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday from In It Together SC and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council. Once again, please post and share, hit like and follow, and post this information on so we can get the message to the masses. I want to say hi to Betty Fletcher. She says, good afternoon to everyone. Hey there, Betty. Thank you so much for joining us today as we have an open, honest conversation about men's health. It's Father's Day weekend, and we are focusing on the men in our lives, having a conversation about what men are concerned about, how and if they even handle their health issues, and what we as women can do to help the men in our lives. Former Physician of the Year, Dr. Gerald Wilson joins us, along with WIS-TV Sports Director Rick Henry. Also, Merrill Johnson with Mercy rounds out the panel today. Gentlemen, thank you again so much for joining us today on Coping with COVID. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So listen, what is your general feeling, gentlemen, about health? Do you go to the doctor regularly? And I'm going to start with you, Merrill, as the youngest member of the panel.
Actually, I probably go to the doctor more than anybody in this whole entire panel. I do believe in taking my health seriously, and I also believe in listening to my check engine light, that crook and that cranny and that pain that you might get. I think it might benefit us all if we go in and we check in with our doctor. So I typically see my doctor once every 6 months, about every half a year, unless she feels like I need to come a little bit more constantly. And then I also have specialists that I see on a regular basis as well too. And as you all know, COVID probably really put a kink in that for a lot of people, but we're very glad that everyone was able to pivot and do some telehealth work as well.
Was that always the case for you, Merrill?
No, it wasn't. I think I think when I first ended up with hypertension, I was like, let me go see what's going on here. And I found out that, for a lot of people, and especially in the African American community, heart disease is like a thing that runs wild and that you have to keep a good, strong check on it. And so I just started going and trying to pay attention to my body. Now, I will admit, COVID has helped me gain a couple of pounds throughout the pandemic. But I can say, thinking back, I think I started right around age 26, and that's when I was like, this is when I need to start regularly going to see and check in on my health.
But you mentioned that it was because you had a high blood pressure scare. Is that what it was?
It was, yeah. It's actually, it's something that it runs through the family,
Yeah.
and I didn't know. I'm a military brat, so the extent of my family history goes between, right to my nucleus, my core family, and so I didn't realize, how important it was to check into the rest of your family health and see what was going on. But 26 came around. I was not feeling well one day, and I went to the doctor, and surprise, you end up with hypertension and taking care of yourself. So that's my story.
Right. So, Dr. Wilson, as a physician, do you go to the doctor regularly?
Oh, yes. I go twice a year for regular checkups. And I think it's really important. COVID has pointed out the significant problems that exist, particularly in African Americans and men, African American men, because typically what we see is that when white folks have a cold, we have pneumonia.
Yeah.
And the complications of COVID have affected us so greatly because there are so many comorbid states that underlie a lot of us. I chair the Diabetes Advisory Council, and so we try to make everyone aware of the fact that not just diabetes, but people that are pre-diabetic need to be checked. And if you are pre-diabetic, meaning that you possibly will become diabetic within 5 years, you can get involved in a program that works on nutrition, exercise, and dealing with stress, because those are components that can contribute to the development of diabetes. So yes, I do go on a regular basis. And actually my brothers, I have two brothers, a couple of years ago we got into this habit of every Sunday we would text each other what our weight, our blood pressure, and our pulse readings are. And so we kind of keep an eye on what we're doing, because all of us have, the usual things to worry about. We have a history of diabetes in our family. I'm hypertensive. Obviously, we like to keep our weight under control. And with COVID, I was going to the Drew Wellness Center on a regular basis, but that got stopped. And so I've been trying to do what I can.
Yeah. I hate that, Dr. Wilson, that you can be exercising and eating right, and you could be doing all the right things, but because of your family history, you get hit with something, so I think that's very interesting. I wanted to ask you, because as a doctor, oftentimes, and I don't know if this is how it is with barbers, but as women with beauticians usually have the worst hair, because they're always doing somebody else's hair. So that's why I asked you, as a doctor, are you so busy doctoring that you don't get a chance to doctor on yourself?
Well, you bring up a good point, and one of the faults that I see personally is that I tend to rationalize the medical information that I know to explain away things. My wife gets upset with me because I refuse to take pain medicine for common aches and pains and all. And I just, it's if you're using things the wrong way, you get some aches and pains, but if you treat it right, it'll get better. So there's some rationalization that goes on that I think I have to keep myself aware of.
Right.
Into problems.
That's Dr. Gerald Wilson. We're also joined by Merrill Johnson. Rick Henry joins us also. He is a sports director of WIS-TV, longtime media staple in South Carolina and beyond. And Rick, you just recently went through a very public, afterwards anyway, health scare. But before you found out about your cancer diagnosis, what was your relationship with your health? Did you go to the doctor regularly?
Well, I have a story that is similar to Mr. Johnson's. 6 years ago, my body kind of crashed out on me one day. And at the urging of my wife, my coworker, Judy Gatson, they told me, hey, you need to go and get checked out. And I did. And for the first time in my life, my blood pressure had, gotten sky high. And I had perfect blood pressure up to that point. And so that's when I started making those regular annual appointments with my doctor. And it was because of that, my prostate cancer was detected early. And I had surgery. I'm doing well. No chemo, no radiation needed. So that's that's been one of my callings since then, urging men especially to take better care of ourselves, see a doctor on a regular basis. It's so very important.
So what is the problem with, I mean, all of you seem like, you at least, other than Dr. Wilson, ended up going to the doctor after you felt something. But we traditionally hear that men say they just don't go to the doctor. What is that about?
I think there are three misconceptions that I need to correct, or three myths that exist. The first one is that African American men are uninsured. That's not true. 80% of African American men have insurance. 20% don't. If we look at the population of people who are uninsured, that's probably in the range of those that don't have insurance. The second myth is that African American men are not going to doctor's appointments routinely. They do. We have to deal with a lot of issues when it comes to going to the doctor because you have to have some awareness about yourself and about what is appropriate screening for your age and for your family history. If you go and you're just there to see the doctor and the doctor has 15 minutes to see you, he'll check your blood pressure, do this, that, or the other, and you're gone. But you have to be committed to your health yourself. And you have to query, you have to ask, is it time for me to have a colonoscopy? Should I be having my PSAs and digital rectal exam done on a regular basis? And I've talked to groups of men, and we talk about this digital rectal exam as a part of screening for prostate cancer. They all get excited, get perturbed and say, well, can I just have the PSA done? My response is, women have been having pelvic exams done for years with no problems, and cervical cancer has decreased significantly. We should have a digital rectal exam, not just to check your prostate, but to check for other anal rectal diseases like hemorrhoids, like proctitis, various and sundry things. So I think we should get away from that frame of mind. And the last myth I wanted to mention was that African American men are not able to see a doctor because of cost. Actually, when you compare whites to African Americans, the ability to pay is pretty much about the same. It's the quality of the visit that you see when you go to the doctor that is important. Don't go and be passive. Go and be aggressive. It's your health. You're the one that's committed to making sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Wilson. You bring up some great points. So you definitely have dispelled as you said, the rumor and the information that is out there that Black men can't go to the doctor. But obviously, men are in general not going. And you made some great points about, one, being aware of your body, and two, knowing what to ask when you do go to the doctor.
Yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. I would just like to add, since my diagnosis and when I was going through my prostate cancer issue, and I started talking to friends, and for the first time, having a lot of open discussions, about our health. And I'm going, wow, this is something that should have been going on well before. Like after I went public with my diagnosis of prostate cancer and Dr. Wilson, I heard from so many people, guys who were going through the same thing, or women who had relatives or friends going through the same thing. And I'm like, this is great information that should be shared on a regular basis, instead of when, oops, I've got this diagnosis. And, you have those fears. What should I do? What's going to happen? And I've gotten more aggressive with my appointments with my doctor. I'm asking questions like, hey, should I have this done? It's so very important. And also too, one thing I've seen with men is like, they say, I'm afraid to go to the doctor because I'm afraid of what I may find out. And I'm like, that's dumb. That doesn't make any sense. Don't you want to know?
So that you can address it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's why you go in the first place.
Well, Rick, I'm going to push back on you there because I'm definitely that person. And so, I mentioned to you, I found out about my hypertension at age 26. And I feel like I went to the doctor and they were like, all right, we can address this with medication. And, Morel, keep your diet in check and keep your health in check. And I was like, great. You go back, you get a follow up, and then the next thing I know, there was something else they were looking at. And they were like, God, your check engine light just stays on. We can't get this bad boy to turn off. And so here we are now, almost a full 10 years later. And I feel like every time I go to the doctor now, I'm leaving with a new medication. I'm leaving with this is a new diet plan you have to do. We're looking at this now because we know that these numbers are a little off, or, we have to do this. And so you end up with what you would think is, one appointment every 6 months. And now I have 4 within 3. And, as a young professional, it is hard to take that time. And, one of my specialists is in Charleston. It is hard to take a day off and go all the way down to Charleston and not be anxious about it.
Yeah.
And I do it because I know that I have to, but I can tell you, everyone in this office with me knows good and well when Morel has an appointment coming because his mood shifts and changes. And my dad, who is probably maybe just a tad bit older, maybe just a tad bit younger than you guys, he always like, well, just go ahead and do it, knock it out and you'll be better after it's over. It's better to know than not. And I agree with him. But I will say that there is some mental anguish that goes around me taking these doctor's appointments and even in the last 10 years, dealing with the surgeries that are involved and just all the things that, you think about as you're like, man, I haven't really started my life yet. And I feel like I'm just this sickly thing. And it can really take a toll on your mental psyche as you get prepared to go to these doctor's appointments. And I know for a fact that a lot of people feel the same way I do. It's why so many people don't, that 20% don't go to the doctor's office.
Yeah. Yeah. Morel Johnson joins us as we have this conversation about men's health. Rick Henry, WIS-TV sports director and former physician of the year, Dr. Gerald Wilson. Rick, listen, what Morel's saying makes sense. Dr. Wilson, and I think that's men, women, dogs, cats, everybody feels like, some kind of way about why do I keep hearing it? But somewhere, is it harder for men? Is it harder for men who maybe feel like I'm invincible, I'm strong, I'm the head of the household, I've got to be a man? Is it harder for men?
Let me add something here. Meryl, I have a friend a few years ago. He wasn't going to the doctor on a regular basis. And I get a phone call from him one day, and he tells me that he's down at the hospital. And I'm waiting for him to tell me that, okay, who are you visiting? And he goes, okay, this is on a Sunday. And he tells me, well, on Tuesday, I'm going to have triple bypass surgery.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. Thank goodness he went to the doctor when he was having those symptoms. But while he was in the hospital, he was also diagnosed as being diabetic, which he didn't know about, prostate cancer. And I'm happy to say he's still here with us. And now, if he gets a runny nose, he's off to the doctor.
He sounds like
especially during COVID-19. And so he's had a complete turnaround from the way he used to be. And I think the less, you fail to go to the doctor, the possibility you're going to have more things wrong that need to be addressed. But he was one of those guys, finding excuses not to go to the doctor. He finds excuses to go to the doctor. And you can put me in that same category too. I'm like, okay, what was that? Do I need to get this checked out? So it can be an inconvenience at times, but now when I have an appointment, I'm happy and I look forward to it.
I go, but I'm not happy.
Well, when I talk to groups, when I talk to groups of men, there are a couple of things I tell them that they should do in taking responsibility for your health, and basically 9 things. Number 1, maintain a healthy weight. That's probably the basis of a lot of the problems that we have, because obesity in our country is an epidemic.
Yeah.
The second thing I say, and I repeat this 3 times, is don't smoke. Don't smoke. Don't smoke. Smoking will kill you. They're not just lung cancer, but heart disease, vascular disease, all of those are accelerated by smoking. Number 3, diet and exercise. Number 4, know your family history. Know the history. And that's one of the things I think men need to do. We have family reach on that. Be an advocate. If you wind up having a disease, talk to people about it. People will listen to you. I mean, you say something, they're going to listen to you. So be an advocate and promote us being healthy when it comes to those things. Number 6, be informed before you see your physician. Have some knowledge. Know when you're supposed to start doing your screening for colon cancer at age 45 now, not 50. Know that you're supposed to start checking prostate at age 40 as an African American man, because 1 out of 5 African American men will develop prostate cancer. Number 7, ask for testing as an African American man because of the increased risk. 3 cancers, we lead the list in cancers: lung cancer, prostate cancer, and colorectal cancer. We need to be asking about being screened for that. Number 8, follow up for test results. If you have a test done and you hadn't gotten the answer back within a week, call the office. I've talked to groups of physicians, and sometimes their offices are busy. They may get a result in, there may be another physician come in, and it may get lost in the mix. Call back and check. It's your health.
Right.
You got to check on it. And number 9, understand that early detection means better results. For hypertension, for diabetes, for cancer, all of those things. If it's found early, you get better results. And you can even prevent some of those things from happening.
Yeah, those are great tips. Dr. Gerald Wilson, former Physician of the Year, also Rick Henry, WIS TV Sports Director. Merrill Johnson joins us also. We're talking about men's health here on Coping with COVID on Wellness Wednesday. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday. We're joined now by Mr. Randolph Anderson, who's joined us. Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for joining us today. He is, if you can take yourself off mute, we would appreciate it. He is a cancer survivor also and a fitness expert. I have to ask, the fact that you are a fitness expert, how did that affect your relationship to your health?
Well, how you guys doing? Sorry I'm late. I was actually handling some other business and just got on late, but got lost. That's how I actually found out I had prostate cancer. I was 42 years old. I actually went in because I thought my testosterone was low. And going to the gym Monday through Friday, taking the weekends off, you know, we're constantly lifting weights and doing cardio and different things like that. So actually I went into my doctor. They did a blood workup, basically looking for testosterone levels. I had a nurse that she was very inquisitive. She wanted to know everything about me from the time we sat down, family history and everything. So, you know, I didn't know, but knows to me, she went back and she ended up doing the PSA test for me. They called me the very next day. I had a PSA of 56.9. So it was August 23rd, 2018. I was in surgery October 29th, 2018. Everything just kind of got slammed to the wall. And literally it was just like life stopped. I had no idea that I was even didn't have any complications, anything like that. But I was familiar because my father passed away, had prostate cancer at the time. He passed away in 2019 from prostate cancer in March. We never discussed it. I never told him I had it. He was going through his final stages and whatnot, and just kept going to doctor visits with him and things like that. So had surgery on the 29th. I am still in recovery, going into 3 years. It is very, it's a very rough road that you have to go through. I thought I was fine, and found out last summer I had a spot, that they found a spot. So I had to do 39 radiation treatments. And, you know, that's Monday through Friday, back to back. And that kind of threw my recovery kind of just back a little bit, but back a lot, actually. But with the fitness, that's what keeps me sane. My family, my wife and kids, and they keep me sane as well. But going in that gym and spending that hour and a half in that gym keeps me sane. I've done some work with some people, and I'm trying to be an advocate for as many people as possible, especially yourselves. I heard the doctor said that the age is 40. I would I would say 35 with family history. I'm serious. I would say 35. You need to start getting checked, especially as an African American male. These are things like you said. You go to these family reunions and nobody talks about it.
Mhm.
I go back in my family and found out that my grandfather died from prostate cancer. Now my father died from prostate cancer, and that's not anything that was discussed across the table. You know, like this is what we're doing. As it stands right now, my numbers are good. Take 0.01, something like that. But it's still a long road to recovery. Certain things you have to get rebuilt and bring back online and things like that. So just as much as it's a physical ailment, the recovery takes a mental toll on you as well in the recovery, especially I'm 45 years old. I was diagnosed at 42. So that's definitely just slamming the brakes on. I would tell anybody, you have to know your primary physician. You need to have a doctor. If you, I always say this, if you want to tell me that you're balling and you're doing it, tell me what your doctor's name is. You can tell me what your doctor's first name is, then I know that you're serious about your business. If you tell me what your doctor's first name is, do you have a cardiologist? Do you have an oncologist? Do you have these people in your corner that you know on a first name basis? If you don't know these people on a first name basis, it's hard for me to take you seriously because you're not taking your health seriously.
Yeah.
And these are things that we have to do, especially African American men. We're from I'm 45 and I'm not that old school, but it's still old school. Rub some dirt on it and keep on going. You know, don't worry about it. You know, that's one of those things. You feel all right. You good enough to go. You know, just keep going until you pass away. But you have to take a hard look at our history and see that most African American men don't make it past 67 years old. 67, 68. That's kind of where most African American men are checking out, and that's far too young for us to be leaving. So definitely those things.
Randolph, Randolph, thank you so much for sharing, your words, your testimony, your journey. Is that the statistic, Dr. Wilson, that Randolph mentioned? Is it 67 for men's life, Black men's lifespan?
It's a little bit longer than that, but it's in that range, and our life expectancy is lower than every Black females, white males, white females.
Yeah. Before we go, and Randolph, I hate that you missed the conversation, but I would love for you to come back. We appreciate it. I do want to say, Lauren T says, I can relate. He says he had 35 treatments Monday through Friday. He's still being treated. Thank you, Lauren, so much for your conversation. I have to ask before we move on, what can women do to help you, the women in your lives, whether it's your mom or your girlfriend or your friend or your whomever, your sister? Because as women, we don't want to nag you, but we sure want to help nudge you to one, take care, don't put dirt on it and keep it moving, like Randolph said, to really take care of your health because we love you. So if we can start with you, Meryl, as probably the youngest person on the panel, what can the women in your life do to help you and you not say, get out of my face?
Well, I hate to use the term nag because it has such a negative connotation. However, I will say nag me. It is I need lots and lots of reminders. I'm so busy and sometimes I forget. And thankfully my doctor is a woman and she is good at reminding me and checking in and saying, you need to do this. And it's an email, a text, a phone call, and it works. And again, it's not me being, just ornery. It is me just truly, like, number one, not wanting to go to begin with, but also number two, me just forgetting sometimes. And I think that having people like you, Trey, like saying, let's talk about this, Dr. Wilson, and people just around you in general, but nag me, and I say nag with the most positive connotation possible.
Right, Rick. What about you? Your situation is so interesting because right after your diagnosis, your wife found out that she also, had a little cancer scare, not a little cancer scare, but what can the women in your daughter, your wife, what can the women in your life do to help you and not alienate you?
Okay, well, I don't want to use the word nag, but it is. It's very important. Nagging, I'll say be persistent. I told you about my incident 6 years ago, back in 2015. Well, what happened one day, I had an interview at the station that I didn't show up for. I had a speaking engagement I didn't show up for. I just slept through it. And people at the station were trying to get in touch with me. And Judy heard about it, and they said, has anyone tried to call his wife? So she called Perrine. Perrine called me, and she could tell by, on the phone that I didn't have that sense of urgency I would have normally had if all this was going on. So she decided to come home and check on me, and I was just kind of carefree, like nothing was going on, getting ready for work. And she said, I'm going to drive you to work. And normally I would have said, why? There's no need to do that. And I went, okay. And so I get to work, and still, things aren't right. And Judy told me, yeah, you need to go see the doctor. And I just, no resistance. My daughter, my son, they were on their way. And if they hadn't been persistent that day, and if I would have gone out there and tried to drive to work, let me tell you how bad off I was. I disabled both of my cell phones because I couldn't remember the passcode. Wow. Okay, so, and if I would have gone to work, gotten on the highway, gotten into a wreck, but because they were persistent, ladies, just be persistent, because men can be so stubborn, especially when it comes to our health.
No.
We want to be Superman, Batman, but you gotta just keep pounding away. And I just want to say something about know your family history. Randolph, you're so right. I have a friend, a good buddy. He called me up one day. He was going through some issues with his prostate, was afraid that he might have cancer. And then he goes, hey, don't say anything to anybody. I haven't even told my family. And after, he had a good outcome. And I told him, and he has a son, he has an adult son. He has some daughters who may one day have some sons. And I said, look, man, you got to share this family history. People have to know. So I think he went ahead and told them. But you're so right. We need this information because it can save lives, really.
Yeah. Dr. Wilson, seeing men for, your long, illustrious career, what have men in your office and even you said help them to nudge them?
Well, I just got through speaking to the South Carolina Academy of Family Physicians. And one of the things I told them when it comes to us trying to get to better health is that it probably would be wise to make joint appointments for men and their spouses or significant others.
Wow.
They do that for more than one reason. One, they are concerned, it's a marriage, it's 50-50 or sometimes 60-40, but whatever. But they're obviously interested in being there. But the more important thing is men tend to not ask a lot of questions. And if you have your spouse there with you, they may jog your memory to ask something that you thought you were going to ask but forgot about, or ask a question you didn't even think of. So having your spouse there when you go to see the doctor can be beneficial. And we're trying to get and actually have them devote a little bit more time for the appointments with your doctor, because just like Randolph said, you need to have a personal relationship with your physician so that you can discuss those sorts of things that bother you, that you probably would pass off if it was just a passing acquaintance with the physician that you have.
Yeah. And Randolph, lastly, what has helped you as far as the women in your life, your wife in this instance?
Well, it's one of those things, most ladies, they do either a year appointment or every 2 years they go in. And with that being said, just her being there and making sure that I'm staying on top of my visits, especially now. Matter of fact, I got a visit in the morning, 8 o'clock. I got it back there in the morning at 8. But to be able to get guys to understand that we need to go in annually or biannually, we need to go in and just try to make sure that we're in the best possible shape that we can possibly be in, and so we can have the highest quality of life. That's something I don't think that we're pushing. Quality of life is a big deal. We push age, but not quality of life. And quality of life means you have to go in and make sure that you take care of this vessel that you have. You only have one.
Right.
So you need to go in and make sure that it gets tuned up, and you meet the right people that can tune it up, the right mechanics. So you need to start having these relationships with your doctors and everything like that. But my wife, she pushes me. My daughters, they push me. They want to make sure that I'm still around, and that's a good thing. But at this point, I'm pushing myself. So yeah, I'm in there just as well as everybody else. But I would think it would be a really big deal if, like Dr. Wilson said, those group appointments or partner appointments, I think that would be a really big thing.
Great idea.
If she's gonna make you go. If she got to sign up and take you, gonna go. So get dressed. You going? We're going today.
Right.
So that would be something I think would be huge. So definitely in that direction.
Yeah. Randolph Anderson's fitness expert and a cancer survivor, Muriel Johnson with Mercy, and Rick Henry, also cancer survivor, and WIS-TV sports director, and the illustrious Dr. Gerald Wilson, former Physician of the Year. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being candid, open, honest, being straightforward, and thank you so much for just sharing your stories, and continue to advocate, tell the story, and continue to give us as women grace and understanding as we help you help yourselves. We love you, and we just want you to be around. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much for the venue. Thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thank you. We talked about our physical and emotional health. What about the state of men's mental health? My conversation with the executive director of the South Carolina Department of Mental Health, Dr. Kenneth Rogers, coming up next, and he gives his take on men's health and how he copes on coping with COVID. That's coming up next.
Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic, and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you by SCDHEC. Visit scdhec.gov for an updated list of testing and vaccination sites and info to help protect yourself, your family, and friends from the coronavirus. SCDHEC, healthy people, healthy communities. In it together, SC and the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council, presenting Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday on Coping with COVID. The City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, helping to meet the needs of small, minority, and women-owned businesses in the City of Columbia. Visit columbiasc.net/OBO. Agape Counseling and Training Services. Call 803-779-2777 for licensed professionals of counselors and social workers helping families, engaged and married couples, and individuals of all ages gain an understanding of all aspects of their lives. If you're having a challenge coping with COVID, visit Agape Counseling and Training Services at agapects.com. The Comet Bus System, a fast, fun, friendly transit system that can take you anywhere you want to go in the Midlands. So don't miss your shot. Catch the Comet and get a free ride to get your COVID vaccine. Visit catchthecomet.gov. Javis Tax Services, South Carolina's premier full-service financial provider with over 20 years of experience. Palmetto Media Connections, connecting media and communities together. And Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. Call Daniel for honest, professional, reliable, and knowledgeable computer sales and service. Coping with COVID from SCDHEC. In it together, the South Carolina Diabetes Advisory Council, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Services, the Comet Bus System, Palmetto Media Connections, Javis Financial Services, and Computers Unique.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.
The Comet gives me a reliable source of transportation.
It's very convenient to me, and they have wonderful drivers.
It's clean, and it builds community. It's fun to meet people.
It makes me feel like really independent. It's just fun.
It's always going to be there and just gets me everywhere I need to go.
We try to ride every single day. Comedy is our livelihood.
Computers, they're a part of our everyday lives, but when they're not working, they're an everyday problem. So call Computers Unique, your everyday solution. 803-351-5821. Is your computer running slow? Won't turn on? Do you need a screen replaced? Or maybe you just need another computer? Well, Computers Unique is your one-stop shop for all your computer needs. They have a wide variety of new and pre-owned PCs, Macs, and tablets. So call Computers Unique, Dutch Square Mall. 803-351-5821. 803-351-5821.
Let Palmetto Painting Services take the worry out of your next home painting project. We can paint anything. Our business is about interior painting and exterior painting. We offer services for residential and commercial properties. Restore the life to your home with a fresh coat of paint from Palmetto Painting Services. References are available upon request. Give us a call at 803-546-4570 today.
Get ready for the 5th annual Juneteenth Freedom Festival, Saturday, June 19th at the Dutch Square Mall in Columbia. Starring the legendary Manhattans, Nelly Tiger Travis, and Chubb Rock performing live. Vendors, food trucks, bounce houses for the kids, and fun for the entire family. The South Carolina Juneteenth Freedom Festival, Saturday, June 19th at Dutch Square Mall in Columbia. Free admission. To be a vendor, contact 803-834-1991.
Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services is commemorating 35 years of dedicated service to the community and wants to celebrate with everyone who has been supportive or involved over the past 3 decades. PALS will host a virtual anniversary program Monday, June 21st, which will feature entertainment, surprise guest speakers, as well as a virtual open house tour of their expanded facilities. This virtual event will be hosted by multi-award-winning journalist Tre Tailor and will feature Honorary Chair Columbia Mayor Steve Benjamin. PALS has dedicated over 3 decades of health, education, and human services to persons and communities affected by HIV and AIDS. And with support from the community, PALS hopes to continue to change lives for many years to come.
How will you remember the year 2020?
COVID.
Losing my job.
Working 12-hour shifts in a mask.
Losing my grandma to COVID.
COVID has claimed thousands in South Carolina and strained our health system, schools, businesses, and families. If you're struggling and need to talk, call SC Hopes. That free call can help put you in touch with people who can help. This goes for healthcare workers, teachers, restaurant employees, parents, anyone and everyone. SC Hopes. Mental health and addiction support for challenging times.
I'm Tre Tailor, and you're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. We're talking today on this Wellness Wednesday about men's health. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. And we're joined by Dr. Kenneth Rogers. He is the Executive Director for the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Rogers, for this important conversation. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Tre. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So tell me, how do men feel even about mental and emotional health? I mean, big, strong guys. Are you guys even concerned about this kind of thing?
Tre, guys are all over the place. I mean, we know
that as well.
I mean, there's some guys that process things one way. There's some guys that process things in a different way. But I'll tell you how a lot of the guys I see process it. There's lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
For those of us who have families, it's all about how do I keep my family going? How do I keep my business going? Yeah. How do I keep food on the table? The whole 9 yards, while at the same time dealing with the stressors of life and those kinds of things. And so for me, it's a matter of trying to figure out how do you balance things, but at the same time maintain relationships, because I think that's a really important thing to do.
Yeah. So you say maintain relationships. So does that mean balance the health of the relationship while balancing your own mental, physical, emotional health too?
Actually, part of it is trying to figure out how to incorporate those two things, because they're not mutually exclusive. Right. If I've got a great relationship with my wife, I've got a great relationship with my friends, those things help me actually put things in perspective and get to a point where I feel like I can do the things I need to do because of those relationships and the strength that they provide to me, the outlet that they provide to be able to talk about the stressors that are going on, and really the perspective it gives me on life. Yeah. Because I realize that, lots of folks are going through the same things that I am. And so I realize that my struggle is not unique. Yeah. My struggle is one that's shared by others, and just the knowledge of knowing there are other people going through the same thing. You get nuggets from them, they get nuggets from you, and you figure out how to make this thing work.
Well, you made such an interesting point that I want to kind of delve into. How important are those relationships? The relationship, one, let's talk about one with your wife, with the significant other. How important is that in your whole health? What do women need to do? Help us.
It's incredibly important. I remember one time hearing somebody on television, it was a lady on television talking about, sometimes you just need to help your guy figure out how to see himself as the king. And I heard that and I was like, man, that's kind of sexist and stuff. But then I realized my wife does that every single day. She kind of peps you up and she's like, you can go out there, you can do it, you can make this thing happen. I'm here for you 100%. You come home and you've had a bad day and there's somebody to actually listen to you. For a while. It doesn't take a whole lot. It's just a matter of having a listening ear, knowing somebody's got your back. And you're there to take care of each other. And that makes such a huge difference.
Well, when we talk to the bigger group, I'm going to ask them this too, but I want to ask you, because you are married, how do we balance giving you advice, talking to you, and nagging? When does it become, I've asked you 10 times to take out the trash? Listen, Dr. Rogers, we don't want to be a pain in the behind. We don't. But we want, I guess, just like you guys, we want what we want.
A lot of it is figuring out how do you deal with your spouse or your significant other and really knowing where they are. Sometimes, in all honesty, I need to be nagged. I mean, there's certain things that I won't do unless she says,
we'll let your wife listen to this conversation. You need to be nagged. Let it be known, Dr. Kenneth Rogers says sometimes he needs to be nagged.
But sometimes it's around things you don't want to do.
Right.
And so asking over and over and over again, some people see it as being a nag. Sometimes it's just persistence, just like you would teach your kids to be persistent about getting things done. But other times it's about figuring out, how do I give him enough space to let him know I'm here? But he needs to go and figure this out himself without my assistance and without my help. And that's where really getting to know the other person becomes important, because it's really about their needs and what they need, because it may be very, very different from yours, but also being woman enough to say, this is what I need when I'm going through stressful periods in my life as well, because my tendency is to try to fix stuff. And, probably through the first 5 years of my marriage, we got in fights because it was like, I don't need you always fixing things. And then it finally clicked on me. I'm a therapist, so it should have clicked on that.
You're a fixer.
But then I realized it's really just a matter of kind of sitting there and kind of nodding and saying, yeah, you're right. Okay. And just let her know that I hear what she's saying. And just validation. That's really been about it. And she'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's interesting, because as women, we want both. That's the thing. We do want the man to be the man and fix things, but then there are times we just want a listening ear. And I think that balance is, do y'all know when, but do we even know when?
So you figure it out. You figure it out over time. We just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary a couple of months ago, and it probably took me about 20 years to figure it out. I think I'm pretty close now, but I still mess up, about 10% of the time.
Right. We're talking to Dr. Kenneth Rogers. He is the Executive Director of the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. We're talking to men about their health, physical, mental, emotional. Dr. Rogers, again, is the Executive Director of the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. And we've been talking about men's mental health. I want to remind you that In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. So, Dr. Rogers, is there a difference in how men deal with things based on their age and race?
That's a really good question. Age, yes. One of the things that hopefully as a man you realize is that the older you get, the wiser you get.
Yeah. You should. Like you said, you should.
You should. So if you're still handling things the same way at 50 that you were at 24, there's probably a problem. But I think that more experience with things certainly becomes important, but also you begin to connect more. So one of the things that I found, and a friend and I were talking about this just recently, that as I've gotten older, I've realized the importance of my relationships with my male friends, because we have similar experiences. We have been through similar things. We have similar stressors, whether it's health, whether it's family, whether it's financial. Being there to have each other's backs, I think, becomes critically important. And there are things that I have an accountability partner, for example. We're about the same age. And there are things that I would tell him that I would probably not tell my wife, because I need to process through it with somebody who's going to challenge me in ways and not let me get away with the first thing that comes out of my mouth.
Yeah.
He's going to like make me better at what I do. And so I think that having those relationships, you start to appreciate more, I think, as you age, especially when you start to realize the value of those relationships and friendships.
I love that you say that, because again, I don't know that we think, not only as women, but in general, think that men's relationships go that deep. I mean, you know, women do, because we're emotional and we talk and we go to the bathroom together, you know, that whole thing. But other than hanging out, you know, grilling, going to the game, we don't think that men have those deep conversations. And it's important just as much, as you said, to you as a man as it is to us as women.
I think the thing that frequently gets missed about guys is guys are actually just as emotional or more emotional than women are. The issue becomes, are you in a space where you can share that emotional reaction? And is it accepted by those around you? There's a certain amount of latitude that we tend to provide to women that guys may not have.
Right.
If I'm a 20-something-year-old woman, I get upset and I am fussing and raising my voice and those kind of things, there's going to be a certain degree of acceptance that's there.
Yeah. She's young. She doesn't know.
As a 6'5", 50-something-year-old black guy, if I start doing the exact same thing, it's going to get perceived differently.
Yeah.
And so what I'm having to constantly think about is, how do I have the emotional reaction that I need to have to get my point across, to be heard, to have that catharsis, so to speak, while at the same time being within a space that doesn't come across as harmful to other people.
Yeah.
And that I think is critically important.
I think that leads into the question about race. You know, that Black men do you deal with things differently just because you're a Black male? Just because, as you say, you may be looked at as a little threatening if a 6-foot Black man is ranting and raving, as opposed to someone of another nationality.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said people didn't perceive me differently. If we look at the data, even out there, that's on, you know, law enforcement arrest rates and those kinds of things, a lot of it is the differential between how people are perceived, what people see as a threat versus not a threat. One of the conversations that my son and I talked about earlier on in his life, my son is 6'3", weighs about 330, used to be an offensive lineman on his high school football team. When I see him as this big, cuddly teddy bear guy.
Yeah.
But if somebody else is seeing him in a different set of circumstances, they may see him or perceive him as threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've talked really carefully about, how do you make yourself appear less threatening while at the same time getting your point across, being assertive, and doing the things that you need to do.
Right.
And that frequently is a really tough line to walk for a lot of African American men.
Yeah. Is that something that weighs on your mental and emotional health, trying to juggle that constantly?
Do you want my politically correct answer? Or do you want my honest answer?
I want the honest answer, Doc.
So my mom was a wonderful woman. Loved my mother. Had a great dad too. But one of the things that my mom was big on is being able to control your reactions at all times.
Yeah.
I've become incredibly good at controlling my reactions pretty much all the time. The issue is I've become too good at controlling my reactions all the time, in that I may not share with you my truth. I may not share with you what I'm really thinking deep down inside, which then could have an impact on relationships, on family, and all those other things.
And on you, and on your stress levels, right?
And on me. I used to joke with my kids and my wife. I had to learn when my kids were young to begin to show reactions to birthday presents. And it had to be what I thought was an over-the-top reaction to get them to see that I was happy. I was happy deep down inside. I loved the gifts. I loved the hugs, but being able to show it, process it in a way that was beyond what my mother taught me was challenging.
Yeah. That's interesting. We're talking to Dr. Kenneth Rogers. He is the executive director of the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. We're talking about men's health here on Coping with COVID. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. I know you talked a little bit about having a group of friends, and I know that you have a group of friends. You guys get together every week via Zoom. Tell me about that group.
Yeah, it's a great group of guys, and we've done this now since the beginning of COVID, and it's been really, I think, beneficial for all of us to be able to kind of be there, have topics, things we talk about, things we just kind of get into as a group of men.
Yeah. So tell me about the demographic of this of these guys. How many? What are the ages?
So we range in age from probably about 30 to about 80.
Wow. All African American males.
All African American men.
Different walks of life.
People come from very different places.
Yeah. And what do you talk about?
It really depends. So we usually start off, a lot of us are from faith-based group. And so we usually start off with, what are we grateful for this week?
Oh, that's good.
What excites you? What's kind of your testimony that you've got to share? And that's usually how we start. And then usually somebody will bring up something that's on their mind that week. This past week, for example, we talked about family and how to help, our kids, our grandkids kind of think about the pandemic, where things are, it's reopening, and those kinds of things. Other times we've talked about how do we feel about, political issues and things that we see on TV, where we see young men getting shot, young women getting shot. And then we'll usually, the last 10 minutes or so is, what are the things that we need to pray for each other about this week? How do we, lift each other up and get us to a better place? And then I think the other thing too is, within that group, there are also guys that have individual relationships with each other. So how do you kind of check in and see what's going on with folks? For example, we've had guys who have, had cancer and going through chemotherapy. How do you make sure you check in, make sure your brother's okay? We've got other folks that we know who would have been on but are dealing with health issues. How do we reach out to them? Even one member who has kind of early dementia. How do we make sure he's okay? And so it really is about, how do you kind of have a check-in, but also how do you really become your brother's keeper?
Yeah. Wow. 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 And I was going to say, so it sounds like accountability and gratefulness and prayer are three of the things that you guys really focus on. Is
Absolutely.
is that key, do you think, Dr. Rogers, to a man's mental health?
Sure. I think that the whole idea of gratefulness is one that I've really started to focus on as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
Because it's easy through the disappointments of life, and we've all had those disappointments. I mean, you can point them out, and you can ruminate about them. You can go roll them over and over in your head. But then when you really start to think about the things that you have to be grateful for, you realize there is so much out there, even in difficult circumstances.
Yeah. Glass half full as opposed to half empty.
Actually, most of the time, the glass is more than half full.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
If you really start thinking about it.
If you start thinking about it. Yeah. I mean, because like you said, you can focus on everything that's happening. I mean, look at the news 5 minutes and you get hit, boom, 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 But I love that you say you've got to focus on gratefulness. What is going well in your own personal life?
Absolutely.
If you start writing those things down, you see, as you say, that the glass is way more full, over half full than half empty. What do men typically do, and what do men need to do as we wrap up?
Tell me a little bit more about what you mean by that question.
Well, how do men cope? How do men deal with their stress? How do men deal with their mental health? And what should men? what would be the better option for a man? And I'll give you a third one. What can women do to help?
I'm going to answer it this way. People frequently think of guys as being dysfunctional. I mean, that's honestly what people think. But,
you're correct.
But if you look at the majority of guys, they really are functional people. Many who are in relationships, sometimes long-standing relationships. There are lots of guys who take care of their kids.
Yeah.
There are lots of guys who are in wonderful relationships that if you ask their spouse, significant other, how are they? They'd be like, yeah, they got some issues, but he makes me happy. So that's where I would start with my premise. So what we tend to focus on are the few guys who are struggling. And if you look at what those struggles are, many times they come out of places of pain. They come out of places where they don't know any better.
Yeah, wow.
And I've got a couple of guys that I've known for years who are multiple relationship failures. But when you kind of jump into it, you realize they come from a place where they have never seen a healthy relationship in their space growing up. And so sometimes it's unlearning old habits. And so I think that, most guys are on the right track. We're trying to do better. But the other piece is, having, the women in our lives, the friends in our lives, who just let us know that they're there.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's not a whole lot that's required beyond that. But also being willing to, in a loving way, make us look at ourselves honestly and ask, is this who you really are? Or is this who you just want me to believe that you're being?
Wow.
And that challenge, I think, makes us better, because sometimes we don't want to look at ourselves.
Yeah. This is Dr. Kenneth Rogers. He is the executive director of the South Carolina Department of Mental Health. I know you guys launched your SC Hopes program, Dr. Rogers, to afford people the opportunity to get the information and the resources they need, not only around COVID, but beyond. Are there specific resources for men, women, children?
You know, the SC Hopes line can actually refer you in the right direction based on what's actually happening in your life at any given point in time, regardless of gender, age, etc. At the department, we have services for all age, all genders. One of the things that we have not done a great job of up to this point, and part of it's because it hasn't been hugely well received in the past, is how do we begin to think about kind of gender specific treatment options and looking at what those would look like. And so that's one of the things that, if not through the department, that I want to look at in other settings, is really how to help people look at some of those specific issues, not necessarily around the fact that I'm dealing with a specific mental health issue, but that I'm just working through life.
Yeah, I agree with that so much. I was having a conversation with a girlfriend just today, and I told her, you know, sometimes you just need somebody to talk to. You just, and it's not, we look at mental health as a big thing, you know, and it is a big thing, but it doesn't have to be you're about to commit suicide or, you know, whatever else people may deem is, you know, a parallel to mental health. You could just be having just a little bit of a hard time coping. It's all those little steps that lead up to the big step that you know, you need to get a hold of. And I think we all go through it because we all deal with something in life. It's just how you deal with it and how you choose to, as you say, relate around it. Well, listen, as you're a busy man and somebody's trying to get you right now. Dr. Rogers, thank you so much for joining us today as we have this conversation with Black men in particular about mental health here on Coping with COVID. It's Wellness Wednesday from In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. Yeah, that was such a great conversation with Dr. Kenneth Rogers. Thank you so much for joining us today on Coping with COVID. In It Together SC and the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday here on Coping with COVID. Listen, if you have a story or initiative that could help someone cope with COVID, would you go over to the Tailor Made Production page on Facebook and inbox me? We would love to feature your story or initiative. If you have a product or service that could help someone cope with COVID, please email copingwith@TreTailor.gmail.com. The email address is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. We would love for you to be a proud sponsor of Coping with COVID, just like all of our sponsors, SCGHEC, In It Together SC, the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina, the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities, Agape Counseling and Training Centers, Computers Unique, Debt Square Mall, Palmetto Media Connections, the Comet Bus System, and also Palmetto Painting Services. Coming up on tomorrow, civil rights attorney Dr. Sharika Robinson talks to a group of South Carolina homeowners who discovered what they believe is a mortgage scam involving hundreds of South Carolina homes. You need to listen in because it could be you. Plus, Dominion Energy and FC Housing Bill Payment Assistance Program. That's coming up tomorrow on Coping with COVID. Then on Friday, we continue our Black Music Month celebration with the mother of Black Music Month, Deanna Williams, and Juneteenth performer Gerald Alston of the Manhattans. That's coming up Friday on Black Music Month. And then next Wellness Wednesday, we're going to talk about National HIV Testing Day and also autism awareness. I'm Tre Tailor. As usual, I'm going to leave you with a quick reading from Jesus Calling. Show went a little long today. June 16th, Jesus says, "Stay on the high road with me. There are many voices that clamor for your attention, trying to deter you to another path. But I, Jesus says, has called you to walk with me ever so closely, soaking in my presence, living in my peace. This is my unique design for you, planned before the world even began." Jesus says, "I've called each of you, each of my children, to a different path, distinctly designed for you. Do not let anyone convince you that this is not the right path for you. Don't let anyone convince you that his path or her path is the only way. And be careful not to put your path on someone else and make it superior. What I require for you is you to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with me wherever I lead. That's a good one. That's your Jesus Calling for today, Wednesday, June 16th. I'm Tre Tailor. Hey, thank you so much again for joining us on Coping with COVID. Stay well, be blessed, take care, get your vaccine, and don't forget to wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. I'll see you tomorrow.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Tre Tailor.